Hi, my name is Katarina Sullivan and I would like to welcome you to my YouTube channel. Over the last few videos, we've been talking about what happens at the polling place on election day, as well as how the votes are counted. If you haven't had a chance to check out those videos, make sure you head over to my channel now, and all of them are listed under the 2019 Australian Federal Election playlist. Today we're going to be talking about what certain results mean once the votes are counted, how we choose the next leader of our country as the Prime Minister, and how do we choose the next political party which leads our country. The only vote count on election night that will determine who our Prime Minister is the House of Representatives, or the lower house vote count. In Australia, we have our two major parties. We have the Coalition, which is made up of the Liberal and National parties, and Labor Party. Currently, Scott Morrison is the Prime Minister and the leader of the Coalition, and Bill Shorten is the leader of the Labor Party and the opposition leader in Australia. On election night, it's really these two parties that go head to head because they are the most likely two parties that can form a majority government. Someone has asked in a previous video, why is it always these two parties? As voters, we like to go with what we know. It's a bit difficult to sort of stray from that really centre ground. So if you think of a political compass, Liberal is just to the right of centre and Labor is just to the left of centre, whereas some of the other parties sort of start to head more out to the extremes, either right or left. And some of the smaller parties that are more centre are just new, just starting to build momentum. And we might see a shift to another party way in the future, but it's very unlikely that there'll be much of a shift away from the major parties this election. Anything that's really significant that could mean a minor party actually win majority government. It's possible, but it's not probable. Some of this information I have covered in my previous videos in the How the Australian Political System Works little mini-series that I am still currently doing. I'm just on a hiatus while we are going through the election period so I can make sure I'm getting election videos out. So if you have watched the How the Australian Political System Works, we've got 3 videos in that playlist, and some of this information will be familiar to those who have watched those videos. It's great to just refresh and make sure that you're up to date with everything. So in the House of Representatives, there are 151 seats this election. Last election there were 150 seats, but we have introduced a new electoral division in the ACT to cope with Canberra's very quickly growing population, and that electorate is called Bean. So this year there are 151 seats up for grabs, and of course we've spoken about in the lower house that candidates run for that electorate. It's not like in the upper house where they run for the state, and it's only one candidate elected per electorate. So 151 electorates, 151 lower house representatives. The political party which has the most representatives elected to the lower house wins government. Now, something very important to note is that you'll hear terms about majority government or minority government. So the 45th Parliament of Australia, which is the one that was just dismissed, ended up being a minority government. This means that while the Coalition held 73 seats, which was the most number of seats in the lower house, they didn't hold a majority. So they didn't have those 76 seats needed to have over 50% of the vote in the lower house. This is called a minority government because while they still have the most representatives in the House of Representatives, they don't have a majority of the power. And a lot of the time they'll have to do deals or work with some of the independent and the minor party candidates to ensure that their legislation can be passed. So it is really important when you vote for an independent to have a look at whether they've preferenced Liberal or Labor on their how to vote card, because that can give you a bit of an indication about who they might support more in the chamber when it comes to passing legislation. Of course, it won't be a very good indication who they'll actually support because you might find that an independent or minor party candidate is really passionate about climate change policy, but also really passionate about economic stimulus options, which are on two different sides of the political spectrum, and they might go one way for one issue and another way for another issue. So if you're voting for an independent or a minor party candidate, it's really important that you find out who they would side with if elected into the House of Representatives when it comes to different pieces of legislation that might be up over the next 3 years of government. In the fruit and vegetable example that we've been using in our last videos, we have fictitious party names around different types of fruit and vegetables. And let's say that we've got the citrus party, because that was my favorite party, and let's say that lemon is the leader of the citrus party. And even though I voted for orange because orange was the representative for my electorate, I really want to see lemon become the next Prime Minister. Also, I hope you love the Australian wildlife that's joining us today. We have cockatoos flying all around outside, and it doesn't matter what kind of soundproofing I have in my house, those cockatoos will make enough noise that you'll be able to hear them. And I don't know if they're coming through on the video as we're filming right now, but if they are, this is Australia. This is the beauty of living in this country, these screeching cockatoos that drive me insane. As I was saying, if Citrus Party wins 76 seats in the lower house, they will form majority government, and Lemon will become the next Prime Minister of the country. But if they only win, say, 72 seats in the House, but they are able to work with some of the more centre parties and some of the parties a little bit more extreme but still on their side of the political fence, they'll form a minority government which could be effective, could not be effective, and they'll actually be the leaders of the country for the next 3 years, even though they don't have a majority in the House of Representatives. We've spoken about how much I hate vegetables and how much I especially hate leafy greens, but the fact that the leafy greens party is the biggest competitors of the Citrus Party. Hypothetically, let's say that they win more seats in the House of Representatives than the Citrus Party. Well, they'll actually become the next leaders of the country, and I'd hate to think who the Prime Minister will become out of leafy greens, because there are no leafy greens that I like. So the lower house count is the most important for determining who will win the election. The Senate count is really important to find out if legislation will actually get passed over the next 3 years. So if there are more members from the Leafy Greens party in the Senate, even though the Citrus has won in the House of Representatives, the Citrus might find that bills are getting blocked quite often in the Senate, and they might have to call a double dissolution, or they might have to call an early election, or something major might have to happen in politics in order to get some of those bills passed, so we don't have 3 years where things are going through the House of Representatives and then getting gridlocked in the Senate. So the best outcome for the Citrus Party and the Leafy Greens Party, or the Coalition and Labour in the real world, is whoever wins in the House of Representatives also wins a good majority in the Senate to help those bills get through. However, what happens in the Senate does not determine who the next Prime Minister will be. So while it is important to know your representative and make sure that your vote is with someone that you want to see lead your electorate in the lower house, it's also really important to think of the overall picture when it comes to election night of which party do you want to be seeing lead the country. So let's say in the example I used in the lower house with my ballot paper, while I don't like the Leafy Greens party, I actually don't mind lettuce because you can use it to make Sang Choi Bao, and I love Sang Choi Bao. So if I went ahead and actually voted for lettuce because I'm like, you know what, I actually don't mind Sang Choi Bao, and then the lettuce got in, And that meant that the Leafy Greens party had enough votes to actually take control of the House of Representatives. But I don't like any of the other candidates, and I especially don't like Rocket, the leader of the Leafy Greens, then I could be shooting myself in the foot a little bit. So while it's really important to know your representative and have faith in your representative, you do have to think of the overall picture of, is this person going to go in and bat for me? And the same thing happens with the Senate, of course. Is if you like a particular senator for a certain party, it's really great, but just remember that if too many people from a party that you don't like gets in, then some of the bills that you might want to see passed in the Australian Parliament might get blocked in the Senate. So it's a really tricky balancing act, really important to be aware of these things and to make sure that you're understanding the party's policies and you're understanding your representative's ability to listen to your concerns about those policies and reflect them back to the party and back into Parliament. So I hope this helps you understand how we choose our next Prime Minister and exactly what it means to cast your vote on election night when it comes to the votes being counted and the outcome for the nation. Thanks for watching. If you learned something, please give the video a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel because I'm putting out new videos pretty much every day at this point. All my social media, also my social media links. Whoa, so many words, so much wrong. Also, my social media links are below. So if you want to follow me on social media and see what other crazy stuff I'm up to, please check it out below. And until next time, keep researching your candidates and don't forget to download the Australian Electoral Commission election app on your smartphone. So if you go to AEC in the App Store or Google Play or whatever Android people use, obviously not an Android user, you can download the AEC app. Really great to do leading up to the election. So until next time, bye!